what's up, metal and heavy music fans? It's Flight of Icarus again with MetalTrenches.com, and we're going to be doing something a little bit different today. We're going to rank metal movies.
Who'd win in a wrestling match, Lemmy or God?
Lemmy. God.
Wrong, dickhead. Trick question. Lemmy is God.
And hey, if you like to be kept up to date with the best and brightest metal bands and albums from the underground and above, then stick with me by hitting that subscribe button down below. Also join us on Discord and support us on Patreon. Alright, yeah, I was thinking of something different to do tier list style, and it occurred to me that there's a decent amount of kind of like metal and rock themed movies now that we could kind of dig into that. Most of them not particularly good, in my opinion, but we'll dive in. My one criteria for these was that they are all fictional. They can be based on a true story, but they all have to be like acted. So I ruled out documentaries and things of that nature because there are plenty of those that I would recommend, but we're just sticking to fictional stuff right now. So man, where to begin? I guess I'll just work my way through these. So we've got Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey at the front of the line here, and I've got to say, like, I'm biased on a lot of these because some of these I grew up with, and this is one of them. I feel like this is one of the most like underrated movies in this genre because it's just so good. It's so creative. It's so unique. If you haven't watched it in a while, I highly recommend checking it out just because like there's weird creature effects. They actually got the person who designed Chucky to do some of like the hell designs. The hell in this movie looks so different from any other version of hell I've seen in any other movie, which made it even more of a disappointment in the new one, which, by the way, I should have included that on this list, but I didn't. I think I'm trying to block it out of my mind, unfortunately. But all I have to say, this is S tier. I love Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. I grew up on Bill and Ted, came to Wayne's World later, so if it's like Wayne's World versus Bill and Ted, it's Bill and Ted all the way. I just think they're so much funnier, and this movie just holds up so well. Detroit Rock City is a movie I've only seen like once, and it has been a little while, but I remember it being pretty solid. If you haven't seen it, it's about a bunch of kids trying to go to a Kiss concert, and they're various shenanigans getting in their way from like parents to, I believe there's some like religious types like trying to bar them from going and stuff. And yeah, pretty entertaining stuff. Mainstream movie. It was in the theaters and everything, and had a pretty good reception. I kind of want to put that at B tier. I think that's a good solid score for that. Lords of Chaos. Now this is the one that made me want to do this to begin with. I feel like opinions are very split on this movie. I strongly dislike this movie, and one of my earlier videos on the channel, it's really just audio, is me kind of doing my little review, talking about what I thought about it right after watching it. And it's pretty bad, which is kind of a shame because it's got some decent actors in it, and I feel like the story is one that's pretty compelling, but the writing is just kind of abysmal and just really cringy, which I can't decide still if it's intentional or not, because, I mean, when we think about the people involved, they were kind of cringy edgelords, so I don't know, that always puts me on the fence with it, but overall, in terms of just watching it, I don't enjoy it. I've watched it twice. The second time it was to do a commentary track with my friend that's also on the channel, so if you want to watch the movie and sync it up with our commentary, that is another option, but this is D tier for me. Would not mind if I never watched it again. Visually, it looks pretty good, but even in that department, like, it's not the best looking movie or anything. There are better options out there. This is Spinal Tap. Legendary, absolute classic. Love this movie. Was introduced to it at a young age, and I mean, this Christopher Guest comedy, like, I just love it. I love pretty much every movie kind of in this series, so to speak, with these recurring actors and everything, but this is the best one. And I love how they do the tropes. It's kind of clear to me too that even though they're poking so much fun at all of it, there's a certain like feeling of love for it too. Like, it doesn't ever strike me that these people making the movie like hate metal and rock music. It's just like they recognize the tropes, they recognize the humorous things that happen, and they just amplify them times 1,000. And it's fun like looking at documentaries and behind the scenes things about how certain things are influenced by real events too, so it's like not completely outside of the realm of possibility. But yeah, I love this movie. S tier for sure. Probably the best of this entire group, honestly. The one I would recommend the most of any of them. All right, Deathgasm. Another very split movie. I saw a lot of metalheads like raving about this movie, and I'll admit I was really excited about it when I saw the trailers because it just looked right up my alley. Like, I loved the aesthetic of it. I loved the comedy from what I was seeing. I like the, you got the meme with the guy with the corpse paint sitting on the bench with the cutesy girly girl, and, infinite uses for that meme. But then I watched it, and this movie is just bad. Like, it's just a bad movie. Honestly, I would probably rather watch Lords of Chaos again than Deathgasm, because it's just so unfunny. Like, I can't think of a single moment in this movie that actually made me laugh. The jokes are so predictable, and the story's so predictable, which would have been fine if they had made it funny, but it's just not. It really isn't. Like, it's just unpleasant to watch. Again, visually kind of okay. I like some of the special effects. I like the stuff they did with the devil and things like that. But there's so many, like, I remember the one thing I remember from this movie, and it's because I hated it so much and was just rolling my eyes the entire time, was there's this running gag for a pretty long scene with like dildos, like something going on with like dildos. They're like beating the demons or whatever with dildos. I don't even remember. I blocked it mostly out of my memory, but I was just like, oh yeah, this is hilarious. It's totally D tier. This movie sucks. If you like it, that's fine, but I think it's just awful. Metalhead, probably one of the more kind of serious movies on this list. Kind of the only one, really. I give it A tier. Like, really solid story. I like how they kind of treat everything in it. It's beautifully shot. Even just that cover, like the whole movie kind of looks like that. And, more artsy stuff, which I like. You may not enjoy. That's fine. But just a lot of care put into it, a lot of love, and a good story. Just for somebody who enjoys like a good kind of artsy drama like I do. So yeah, really solid film. As far as like that metal aesthetic, obviously you get enough of that, but it's in a different way. It's not like a fun film like most of these other ones are. Speaking of which, we've got Tenacious D, The Pick of Destiny. Enjoyable movie. I really like it. I actually like their other film before this one. That's not really a film. It's more like a collection of shorts. That still makes me die laughing every time I hear it, every time I watch it. But yeah, this one's good too. And just a good time. I love Jack Black because, again, it's clear to me that even though he's like poking a lot of fun at himself and at the genre and all that stuff, like, he loves it. He absolutely loves it. And I love that game that he was involved with too, Brutal Legend, even though I hated the like real-time strategy parts of it. Really fun game. Like, one of the few kind of like metal themed games that I'd love to see more of that. I'd love if they did like a sequel and took the stupid real-time strategy parts out of it. But yeah, I'll give this a B. Solid watch, funny, still holds up pretty well, and just, yeah, good time. The Devil's Candy is more of just like a straight horror thriller kind of flick, but there are like metal elements. Like, the dad is a metalhead. I'm forgetting the name of the actor, but you'd probably recognize him from a bunch of other movies. Solid flick. As far as like on this list where I'd put it in like rewatchability and stuff, I kind of put it still like middle of the road. Not something I'd probably watch more than once, but definitely worth a watch. And again, like, less kind of overt metal themes to the whole movie, I would say, in comparison. So that kind of drops it down a little bit. But yeah, solid film. C's still solid. Like, C's still like, you should watch it. Whereas these two on the bottom, I would say, go ahead and pass and you won't be missing anything. All right, Wayne's World. I already mentioned Wayne's World. Wayne's World 1 is a staple. Like, it's another classic, obviously. You got the famous Bohemian Rhapsody scene. Great film. Not quite as good as Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, I would say, personally. I know some people definitely argue with me about that, and by all means do that in the comments. Let's have it out. But I'm going to put this at A tier. Solid stuff, lots of metal and rock themes, still funny, makes me laugh, good stuff. Wayne's World 2, on the other hand, is kind of just okay. It's fun. I'd still put that at like C tier. I wouldn't rewatch it as much as the first one. It's a little bit jumbled, but it has good moments. It's still funny. There's the whole, festival theme to it, which kind of ties in with, the greater stuff that we're looking at here. But I could see that wavering kind of between a B and a C. So somewhere in there. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, I would also put at an A. I like Bogus Journey more. I just think it's more creative and interesting and just bizarre. And yeah, that's the one I rewatched the most. But I love the first one. Lots of classic moments in this too. Great soundtrack. Both of those movies have great soundtracks, I think. This one's more kind of like 80s metal and rock, whereas we're much more 90s. There's even like a Faith No More track on the Bogus Journey soundtrack. But yeah, really good stuff. I could rewatch it over and over and over again, and you better believe when I was little I did. I had it recorded on a cassette, and I just wore that tape out. Heavy metal. Now, this is obviously a classic too. I'm really struggling where to rank it though, because I think visually and as far as it just being unique, it just sort of stands alone and is just this very special thing. But not all of it is like that fun to watch. Like I find the large portions to be a little bit weird or boring. But still, it's like such a staple. Like you think heavy metal movies, and of course, heavy metal has to come to mind. Like it's up there in like the top 3 you'll probably think of at any given moment. So I'm really struggling with it. Like if I'm thinking about it on my scales, kind of like enjoyability, it's a little bit lower, but obviously I can't rank it. I mean, I can rank it for musicianship. The music is solid, but also thinking about like the technicality of the filmmaking and the artistry is pretty high. And then innovation, like it's pretty high too. So I don't know. I could still see kind of putting it at S tier, but at least A tier. So somewhere in that realm, because it's not perfect, and I try to nothing's truly perfect, but S tier to me is like near perfect, and I don't think it's necessarily near perfect. So I'm going to put it at A for now, and we can talk about that some more. Rockstar is, I should have looked it up, but this is one of the like bigger movies on this list. Potentially like one of the big studio films. And of course you got a big name. You got Mark Wahlberg, and it's the story, it's a real life story revolving around, classic heavy metal band. But, they don't actually name them probably for like copyright reasons and not wanting to get sued and things like that. I remember kind of rolling my eyes when I saw trailers for this, but I caught it on TV. They used to play it back when I had cable. Like they would play this movie pretty frequently on reruns on the free movie channels. And I watched it a couple times, I want to say. It's actually pretty decent. It's enjoyable. It's well acted. It's got good actors in it. I like Mark Wahlberg. I think he's good in some stuff. He cracks me up in The Departed. But yeah, I don't know. I'd kind of put that like around B tier. Like pretty solid stuff. Would recommend. Would rewatch too. That kind of surprises me, honestly, like looking at this. But yeah, pretty good. And then Airheads, another movie I'm extremely biased about. I'm willing to bet there's a lot of people who haven't even heard of this movie, but it's such a staple for me. Like it was one of those things where, I grew up in the time still where you would go to the video store on a weekly basis. And like every Friday we'd go rent usually a movie for everyone and a movie for us, or a movie for the adults and a movie for the kids. And I remember seeing this on the shelf and being like, oh, Adam Sandler. And like, I was big on Adam Sandler. He's the drummer. And then I knew Brendan Fraser too. He's the guitar player and vocalist. And then you've got Steve Buscemi in a strangely like badass part in this as the bass player, and not looking as weird as usual too, because with the long hair and the goatee and everything, he kind of looks, like I said, kind of badass. And it's fun. It's funny. We rewatched it a couple months ago, and it still held up. I still thought it was hilarious. Lots of great cameos too. I'm forgetting his name now, but the blonde guy from This Is Spinal Tap actually plays, I want to say he plays like the sleazy like record producer in this, and he's really good. And then of course you got Lemmy doing doing a cameo, which I included the clip of at the very beginning. One of my favorite, I mean, for two cameos, kind of like one in that joke that I shared, and then there's another one where he just randomly is in the crowd, and he was, what does he say? Like, everybody's admitting that they're like not as cool and metal as they would like people to think they are. And he says he was in like the school's art club or something like that.
I was editor of the school magazine.
But anyways, going along too long, I give it a B. Give it a solid B. One of my ones on this list that I would rewatch over and over and over again. And so, yeah, I think that's overall kind of my thoughts on these metal movies. It's a little bit sad to me that there's not more. Like, I'd like to see a lot more and quality. So let me know down in the comments, what is your favorite metal themed movie and what is your least favorite? But that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.